You're in the Where's Huddle with me, Bramno, Marcus, or Maxime today, but I couldn't be more excited to announce that rejoining me after way too long, a true radio professional with time in college basketball, college football, college baseball, the Canadian Football League, and the NFL. A luminary voice within the NBA with more than 34 years of broadcasting experience in the association. A 2013 inductee into the Utica College Pioneer Athletic Hall of Fame, the immediately recognizable voice of the Golden State Warriors since 1995 and the best damn play-by-play announcer I have ever had the pleasure of listening to, Mr. Tim Roye. What's going on, Tim?
Wow, it's all downhill from here now. After that intro, it's like, oh, it's crash and burn time.
I
So
mean, you got to stop adding bullet points to that, Tim. We're not going to have any time for the podcast anymore. If
I've
you
been really lucky, put it that way. So
Um, that was my first, so my unstated goal in this, Tim, is not to needlessly kiss your ass. And I just literally just right there, I just followed. I was getting ready to say we were the lucky ones, but I kept it in pocket. I kept it in pocket,
there
and
you go.
we'll see how this unfolds. I've got a ton of basketball store stuff and related topics for you, but let me start this way. Interesting season. It's been like the tale of two seasons. And, as recently as the microcosm with that baseball series against Minnesota, one time, first game, fourth quarter, we look exceptionally outclassed. Then last night, off we come and have a win. But then the season itself, incredible start, and then a little bit of a lull there. And so my first question for you, how does the ups and downs of a season impact your enjoyment of a year? Like, do you still like it as much when they're winning or losing, or does it matter how they're playing?
Well, I love it no matter what happens, no matter where they are, what they're doing. I love the work and I love the NBA, and so that part of it never diminishes. And I've also been fortunate because in this role with the Warriors, I've always had this open door policy because the Bay Area has always been a great NBA area,
Yep.
and so I can talk about the other players on the other teams. When the Warriors were bad, I could talk about, maybe the good Kings teams or the Lakers or somebody on a particular broadcast, and I wasn't going to get a reprimand. I wasn't going to get an email from somebody saying, "Why are you talking about the other team?" So even when the other night, I mean, when they lost to Minnesota, Anthony Edwards was fantastic. I mean, he was a really, really good, NBA player there for about a quarter and a half. I think there was nobody playing better than he was. And watching him mature is fun for me, and it's fun, I think, for the league. Now he's going to be a pain in the butt for the Warriors forever, but we did the same thing watching Steph, Clay, and Draymond mature in front of our eyes, and so these teams have had high draft picks and they've cashed in on them. You gotta give them credit and say they didn't screw it up, and it makes the league better.
Has the change in stakes, and I'll keep it personal and then ask the question. I'm still, I mean, I love watching every game. I couldn't be more excited. But we've been watching it for a long time, and it used to be we were chasing the dragon. They never had any titles, they never had any playoff experiences, so every game felt so important as far as developing the guys and seeing where they're going. That's not true anymore. We're lucky enough. We've now watched four title runs. And so for me, I'm still into it, but the regular season isn't as compelling. I've lost some of the stakes. For you, you've been doing this longer. I've been watching this much longer. Is it harder getting yourself back up for a regular season game now that you've watched, a dynastic run?
No, not really, because I think what you see in the regular season translates to the postseason. And by that I mean, if your team's getting better as the season goes along, then you're setting yourself up for a postseason run.
Yep.
And we've also found out, unfortunately, via the play-in bracket, that these regular season games matter. You can't kick away games. And up until the 5-game losing streak, the Warriors hadn't kicked away a game all year. They got beat in Cleveland. There's no way around that. They got
Yep.
beat by their team. The Clippers are a horrible matchup for them. Any team that's long and has long defenders, the Warriors are going to have trouble with. And so I think, they've done a really good job so far of not kicking away games, and I know how important that is because you want to stay out of that play-in bracket because you have a bad night, the other team has a great shooting night, and you're sitting at home watching everybody else have fun, which is what the Warriors, it had happened to them twice now. So getting out of that play-in bracket is crucial. So I think the regular season means as much as it used to. I think that maybe we're not as fired up for a big matchup in the regular season as we used to be because we've had so many big games via the playoff runs.
Yep.
But I again, it still matters and it's still important for them, to win the games they're supposed to win.
I don't know if this counts as ass kissing, but I do promise to steal that answer. Next time somebody if
Okay.
this comes
Yeah.
up, I will definitely be using. This wasn't a planned question, but I got to ask you. So, for those who aren't following us on YouTube and aren't watching the video, Tim is what looks to be in his home office, and the player behind him on a poster is Mookie Blaylock. Like, if you had given me 1,000 guesses, Tim, like, literally like 1,000 guesses, who do you think? What picture do you think is Tim Roye's office? I would not have guessed Mookie. What's the Blaylock thing?
It's a cutout. They used to have them up on the walls of the old facility in Oakland, and one year they were throwing a whole bunch of them away. They were out, heading for the dumpster, and I said, "Well, at least I'll grab one." And lo and behold, the one in my hands was Mookie Blaylock. So that's how it ended up. And I figured, okay, since I got it, I'll put it up on the back side of the door. And there it is, Mookie.
You should have him sign it with the phrase, just because I'm a captain doesn't mean I'm a leader. And just maybe a phrase lost to history.
He
Okay.
is he is the only guy, and Steve Smith told me this once, so he is the only guy that I know of in the NBA. Most guys in the NBA would tell their teammates, "Hey, I'm going to get a bucket next time down." Steve Smith told me Mookie would tell him, "I'm going to pick this guy the next time he comes up
Huh.
the floor," because he's the only player that's ever told me that. So it's he's had some rough times. I hope he's back on track now, and I had no real issues with Mookie. That was one of those years that just got sideways. And for our younger fans who may be listening, the Warriors had every kind of, they had a 5-year run where every kind of problem, whether it be injuries, chemistry, bad guys that weren't interested in working or winning, they had it all in that 5-year stretch. And for those of us who have been around long enough to see the franchise now be one of the best franchises in the world, it's an amazing thing, and it's great. It's part of my journey, and I really love it.
If you are under the age of 40, you don't know what angst is watching this team. You just like, if you're really upset about the rotations or you think that like Kaminga hasn't been developed well enough, go back, go look up Mookie Blaylock, look at that season and get a sense of, some of the stuff we were able to survive.
Yeah, back then you'd watch a rerun of a Warrior game. Say it was a national TV game and they reran it and the Warriors had won, but you were still nervous that they might lose on the rerun.
100%. That's exactly right. And if one positive thing happened, I remember Danny Fortson coming in and had like a 20 rebound game. And I like celebrated like we won the championship. Like our front court problems are solved. And it didn't really work out that way.
No, no, they just kept, the back then it was just so hard because, they never could get that one player to come in and change the culture. One player that's going to make everybody else better. They had a lot of parts who weren't bad parts,
Yeah.
but they never had that star or that leader that would take them and make them a better team.
That's exactly right. And the second we maybe found one, like Gilbert Arenas, they left as quickly as possible. They got the sense and got the hell out of there.
Well, that was just bad luck too, because the NBA had a bad rule in place, and after Gilbert left, they said, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't do it that way," and they changed the rule. I said, "Well, it's a little late now,
That's
It's like
exactly right. Let it
so."
happen to somebody else. It shouldn't have just happened to us. Last personal question, and I didn't prep you for this one, so if it doesn't come right up, no problem. But is there a favorite season when you look back on the teams you've covered? Is there one that sticks out as my God, this was by far the best?
Well, they're all great in their own way and shape and form, and even the bad years were still. I still had a lot of fun. I still think we did a lot of great work on radio back then, but I'd have to say probably 14, 15. I'll tell you why. Two reasons stick out to me for that. One, I was so thrilled that the younger generation of Warrior fans had their team now that they could look at and talk about. Because before that, it was dad's team and grandpa's team,
Yeah,
74,
sure.
75
Yeah.
Warriors, and the togetherness team with the great late Al Attles controlling it. And And so, I was thrilled for them because I knew how passionate they are about the Warriors and how it had passed from generation to generation. And now they had this great team to root for. And it was the first title in 40 years. And plus, there's always something Steve Kerr told me one time that during that season, he said the climb is always the most fun.
Huh.
And then that was when they were climbing. They had been a good team, under Mark Jackson.
Yep.
They had gotten to the second round, scared the life out of the Spurs in that second round
Yeah.
series,
Right.
and then had the unfortunate thing down south with the ownership deal in LA the next year. That was a goofy series. Hard to get a read on that one. And so, Steve Kerr comes in and everything just clicks into place. And so that was very exciting. And I think it was also very exciting for the fans because I think for the first time in about 40 years, they actually believed, hey, we got a team that might be able to win it.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
lo and behold, they did.
And to dovetail it into what you were saying earlier, so after they won, I had the same fear that if I rewatched it, it wouldn't have happened again. Like
Yeah,
if I watched any kind of a replay, I was just like, let's never touch it. Let's never touch it. Let's never question it.
exactly.
Okay, perfect transition. So, brand new segment for today, aimed immediately at you. The
Yep.
idea of it is ask a legend. Here's the concept.
Well, when are we bringing in the legend?
Yeah, that you were.
When?
Look, I've
Where?
held back the ass
Who's
kissing for
there's
so
somebody
long
standing
that
behind
I
me?
held it back.
Okay.
Like I finally dropped it. In fact, no, Mookie Blaylock is joining us. We're going to ask him a lot of questions.
Exactly.
But here's the concept. So I'll admit to you, since '95, you've been teaching me things. Not just through this podcast. I mean, certainly once I started getting lucky enough to actually talk to you, you've taught me. But just through the broadcasts, your observations, the things you've noticed, the things you've said, I've walked away with little pieces of knowledge. And so I want to take advantage of that today. And what we're going to do, pretty simple. I'm going to give you a name or a team or just a concept. You tell me what stuck out to you about that team, name, concept, whatever it is for this season. All right.
Okay.
First name, Brandon Pajemski.
I think he's searching right now. I think he's searching for his NBA identity. I think that, like all players in the league does figure you out a little bit.
Yep.
Okay. And so they're taking away some things he wants to do and on the offensive end. And so I think he's trying to at times that maybe do a little too much.
Yep.
And so I think he'll get out of it. He's a smart kid, he's a confident kid, he's tough, hard-nosed. So I think he will find his way out of it. But, until he does, he's just gotta keep it simple. And I think if he can do that, I think he'll be fine. And I don't think he's regressed to the point where you can't play him. But I think he's just got to be able to figure out how he needs to fit and what his best role is to
Yeah.
help the team win. And so I think right now he just needs to find that counter, something that the other teams don't know about, that's gonna help him, propel him back into a good rhythm. We saw it last night with, on the Sunday night game with Minnesota with Buddy Hield,
Yeah.
got back into rhythm, and all of a sudden
Yes.
there he is again. It's Buddy Hield again. And so it can happen, and I think it will happen for Brandon.
Thank goodness for that Buddy Hield game too.
Yeah.
We needed it, and 27 is a hell of an answer. I agree with you, Pajemski. A less educated take, but last year was almost defined by how he allowed the game to come to him. He felt like he was a much older player, even though he was a rookie, because he wasn't pressing. And this season seems to be defined by his angst. He seems to like he's constantly trying to be intangible, and that's impossible. You gotta kind of let it come to you, kind of deal.
Yeah, and I think that happens with young players a lot of times too. We saw that with Jonathan Kuminga at times over the last couple of years, where he's trying to become the player he wants to be, instead of letting that process come at a natural pace and improve that pace by really paying attention to little things. And I think, even in the last couple of games, we've seen him start to pay attention to little things. I think he's still got some growth to do, which I think is exciting. I think that's the part of it that exciting is that, as frustrating I know as he's been at times this year, that the ceiling for him is still really high,
Yep.
and the things he can get better at are not athletic. right? And
Yep.
so that
Yep.
to me is the exciting part because once he gets those, then he's able to use all of his God-given gifts in a way that will be effective, efficient, and also, giving productivity a name alongside winning, and that's when you got it.
Do you see him taking those steps? So he was going to be my next name. I mean, do you feel like, I mean, it's slow and steady, but like, is what we've seen this season, do you feel like he's getting closer to reaching the potential we all hope he'll reach?
Well, I think again, it's probably going to be two steps forward, a step back, two steps forward, a step
Yep.
back, and I think we've seen that maybe in the last three games. He took a big step forward when
Yep.
Steph and Draymond were out. Okay, I've got to be aggressive tonight. There was no rim protection for Houston. He can get to the rim there, right?
Yep.
So he used that to his advantage, including the bucket that sealed the game. And then against Minnesota, the next night. I think he kind of wanted to do the same kind of process, but you got Rudy Gobert there. Okay, it's a different game now, and he wasn't the only one, taking it to Gobert.
Yep.
You if you're gonna drive on him, you've got to make sure he's in your rearview mirror because if not, he's long enough and quick enough to block it. So, and I thought last night, I thought he played that second game against Minnesota smarter.
Yeah.
He's okay. I'm not going to go all the way all the time. He took those little 15-foot jump shots, which I
Yep.
really love him taking because he's really good at it. And he kind of just relaxed a little bit at the foul line, and that's I think that's going to be a huge step forward for him as if he can get better at free throws. And I think it's there. I don't think he's because he's a decent shooter. So because he can get to the line with his ability and his body and his pump fakes, he can get to the line, and that's going to be a huge strength for him. It's gonna allow him to be productive on nights where maybe the shot's not going in, and it's also going to help the Warriors because you want to get to the line when you have guys like Buddy Hield and Steph Curry on your roster.
Yeah. I don't mind telling you that every trip to the line this season has been an exercise in futility for me. I've been taking it kind of hard. I get almost immediately pessimistic. I start thinking like, just hit one, please, just hit one. Yes, it is what it is. Maybe they turn it around here.
It's time to break out the rosary.
I have. It hasn't worked so far. I mean, I'll find. We'll find the next thing. Let me give you a couple of non-warriors.
Okay.
Edwards.
Wow. I think he's a star in the Ascension. And because, I said this to Tommy that the day has come that everybody feared the last couple of years, that when Anthony Edwards really nailed his shot,
Yep.
that he all of a sudden becomes unguardable. And he's nailed the shot now. And so, and I also see him, he's not a selfish player.
Yeah.
He doesn't look always shot first. He looks to get his teammates involved, and I think that's a reason why they're going to be a really good team again this year. But as he grows, he is going to be one of the, if not already, top three or four players in this league. I like him a lot, and the older I get, the more of a curmudgeon I get. I kind of grade a little bit harder, maybe because I've seen so many players. I grade harder, but he gets an A plus from me. He's really really good.
The biggest compliment I can give him. So, I mean, it's not breaking news to say that he's likable. They did a Netflix
Yeah,
like documentary on him and everything. So I'm just repeating what I've heard 1,000 times. But the biggest test I can give that is there's been other likable players, but when they come in and play the Warriors as a psychopath, I tend to dislike the opposing players, especially if they're vocal. And the last two games, Ant Edwards has not only talked a bunch of crap to us, he directed that at my favorite player. He's talking specifically to Steph Curry. And even as that's happening, he's still compelling to me. It's impossible to dislike the man. I wanted him to lose. I was very happy to watch him, leave the court without the victory yesterday. But where I would normally be angry and resentful, I haven't been with him. He's a very compelling young man, I guess I should say.
yeah, he can back up the talk too. That's the other thing.
Oh
I mean, it's what did Reggie Jackson say? It's not bragging if you can back it up, and he can back it up. So yeah, it's there are guys that chirp. Michael Jordan was a big chirper, and he could back it up. And so Larry Bird was a big trash talker. He could back it up. So I don't have a problem with him doing that as long as he doesn't get go all Dylan Brooks on us or something. So
I, um, at the risk of boring you, I was at the Houston game. I don't think there has ever been a player who is more successful at getting under people's skin than Dylan Brooks. I'm nowhere close to the floor. I come in and was immediately annoyed by him during the warm-ups, Tim. I was immediately annoyed by him. But I digress. Two more players, and I'll get you out of here. Wembanyama.
I he's got everything you need to be a superstar, and as I tell my friends who work in broadcasting down in San Antonio, I say they're the luckiest franchise in the history of sports. 3 times they've won the lottery, and they get David Robinson, Tim Duncan, and Victor Wembanyama. I mean, come on, that just doesn't happen. But anyway, he's got everything you want in a player, and that he's got that competitive fire. He wants to win. He does not want to be on a bad team. And so he's got the whole package. He's so long, he's so skilled. The only thing I worry about him, and the same with Chet Holmgren, is that can they get strong enough
Yeah.
to take the banging and the wear and tear? Because they got a lot of moving parts on those long bodies, and the NBA has a lot of strong bigs, and so can they take that pounding? And that to me is the only question that will keep him from having a Hall of Fame career.
This next one's cheating a little bit, but you seem
Okay.
to be the perfect person to answer. So this is me being bitter. Not the Warriors, the Bay Area radio scene lost a huge name in my mind. I have been a Tom Tolbert fan for as long as I can tell you. From the Razor and Mr. T, I mean, from like way back. There's something about his in particular skill set that I always enjoyed, and now we no longer have him on 680. Just give us a sense, man, because you've worked with him. What makes Tom such an effective radio personality? What made him so damn good at what he does?
Well, first of all, he's real. He's
Yeah,
not phony.
yeah,
This is what you hear is who he is. And secondly, he has the ability to be smart about things, and he knows a lot about sports and especially about the NBA and basketball. But he also knows that the bottom line, these things are supposed to be fun.
yeah,
So he keeps it fun. But when it's time to get serious, I know late in the game I can go to him and say, "Okay, what should happen now? What would you like to see happen now?" Or what do you think Steve Kerr is talking to them about? And he gives me a good, serious answer. And so he knows when it's time to be serious. He knows when it's time to be funny. I'm blessed. I've gotten to work with two analysts in my Warrior radio career, Jim Barnett and Tom Tolbert, and I can't get any better than that.
yeah. All right, I'm gonna break my own rule again. Time for a quick piece of ass kissing. Tune out, so it's not awkward for me. The chemistry that you've developed with both of those people, and to dovetail into what you were just saying, the vulnerability that Tom is occasionally willing to show. You'll ask him things like, "Well, could you be out there now?" Like I could until both my knees would blow out and I'd throw up because I was too tired to deal with it. And your guys' ability to seamlessly do that, to go, here's what you need to know. Here's something you'd like to know. Here's what you need to know. Here's something that's entertaining. Is what makes you guys the best in the business. But back and last question. All right,
Okay.
help me through this. How do I understand this team, Tim? Right? What's the real point? Is it the success that I be focusing on? That the 10-2 start? Is it the slide? Like what's the real version of the Warriors this year?
I'm gonna cop out here and probably say the pat answer, which is I think it's probably in between. I think they caught some teams at a good time. They played without Steph, and they played the Pelicans twice in a row, and caught them at a good time because they've been so banged up this year. Um, but they did play really well
Yep.
for a while, and their offensive numbers got a little skewed because of the first 2 games they had scored so many points and done so many great things against Portland and Utah. And so, but I think they're finding out how they need to play.
Yeah.
So I think they're right in the mix as I thought they would be. I mean, if you had told any of us this would be their record on this date, I'd say, yeah, we'll
Yeah.
take that.
Yeah.
Now the way it started and how we got here is a little different. You're a little concerned about it, sure. But they really need to have their, players on the periphery step forward. Can Kuminga be the number 2
Yeah.
consistent scorer behind Steph? That's a big question this year. Can Andrew Wiggins, have a kind of a year like he had in the second half of 22? He looks good. He got to a really good start. Got a couple of, the ankle injury has kind of set him back a little bit, but I think he can have a really big year. Can Pajemski find that rhythm he needs right now. These are all questions that are going to determine their season.
Right.
And I think, that's to me, what you're going to get most nights from Steph and Draymond. There are going to be nights this year they're going to hit the accelerator and there's not going to be much in the tank because of the miles they have on those wheels. But they're great players. They're Hall of Fame players and they make this team great. And so, I just think they need to have a collective step forward from the group, if you will, and especially their young players. They've got to make progress this year for them to be a threat, and that's what they need to be. They need to be a threat, to win the title.
I can only hope we're getting there. Also, I wouldn't mind getting out of this murderer's rows of opponents. It feels like the last like 10 games have all been against surefire
Oh,
playoff teams. It's just
well, and then now you have the Cup schedule where you play Houston and win or lose, your next game is against Dallas or Oklahoma City.
yes.
Where's the reward in winning your group? That's what I want to
No,
know.
that's
Where's
exactly
the
right.
reward in that?
And I don't like
For
I don't of all the teams I didn't want to play for the when we didn't get to decide who we would play for this next cup game, it was Houston. We've got this giant streak going. They've
oh
got
yeah,
nothing
yeah,
but motivation. I'd prefer
yeah.
to stay out of there. Why does that have to be the team?
Exactly.
Um,
Because there's going to be a night the Warriors will play the Rockets and the Rockets won't miss
of
because
course.
it's a law of averages. It's
That's
going to come that way. And the other part about it is if the Warriors beat Houston and go to Vegas, this little week all of a sudden turns into a 12-day road trip
hmm,
because you go to Vegas and then you
yeah.
go to Memphis and Minnesota and you don't get back until a couple of days before Christmas. So it really could have a big impact on their season and it's the good and the bad I guess with the cup. The good, it's okay, you have a chance to win the cup, some of the players have a chance to win some big money, and the bad news is you might be on the road for a month to get it done. So
To go
but
after a piece of hardware no one's going to remember, in like 3, 4 years. If you hang a banner, everyone's going to make fun of you. But an issue for another podcast. Tim, thank you. I really value the times you come on here. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So thank you so much.
no, my pleasure, and happy holidays to all the Dub Nation out there, and I appreciate your support. And it's nothing but a pleasure for me to have the job. I'm one of the luckiest guys in broadcasting.
Yeah. Well, final time to ask him. The luck is ours. I finally got to say it. All right, get
All
out of here, Tim. We'll talk to you soon.
right.